Hi, this is Jim Gibson. Thank you for joining me on my new podcast called Business Sense. And today is an introduction. We're just going to talk about some of the things that we're going to carry, that we're going to cover in this podcast. And it's all about business. It's going to be about starting a business. It's going to be about IT business. It's going to be about business in general. It's going to be about cybersecurity. It's going to come from a perspective of, IT in business. So it's going to hit a lot of areas. Most people have asked me to do this podcast so I could describe how to start a business, and we're going to be covering that heavily at the beginning. And then we're going to break into other subjects that may be of interest to you. So to start with, what is my background? Well, spent many, many years as a Marine Corps officer. And the thing unique about the Marine Corps is they teach you about how to manage people. And it's a special type of management. It's called leadership. It's a lot different than managing boxes and computer systems and things like that. So I'm going to be talking about leadership in this podcast also. Other background I have is that I have a master's in business administration. And the master's in business administration classes that I've taken have taught me how to do things like policies, procedures, how to judge good ideas from bad ideas, about legal issues, and we'll be discussing all those when it comes to business. It's things that you need to know from both ends, how to be a great manager and how to be a great leader. And we'll talk about all those things in this series. And does it apply to you? Yes, it applies to you if you're thinking about being in business. This is going to be very practical. It's going to be from my experiences and from what I've learned over the years. 40 years now since I started the Marine Corps. In 40 years I've been in IT, so I got a lot to add. I've started a number of businesses. Most successful was Nova Voice and Data. And this is also part of a YouTube called CableSupply, which I have an e-commerce site that sells IT equipment. But if you're not an IT person, that's okay, because we're going to talk about other things, other businesses. We're going to talk about how to form a business generally, whether it's selling clothes or starting a garage to fix cars. We're going to be talking about all those things, how to do business generally. And I've started more than just a handful of businesses. Every single one of them been successful. One of the things they say when you start a business, or 9 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 5 years, but you know something? 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the second 5 years also, and the third, and the fourth. It's not easy to run a business, and it's not for everyone. So we're going to be talking about how to get promoted as an employee, some of the things you need to do both in IT and outside of IT to help you get promoted. And I've had a lot of employees. I've learned some things that they need to do a better job that would help them get promoted within their industry. So these are the things we're going to be discussing, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. Now, I'm an entrepreneur. Doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur to start a business, but if you start a business and you're an entrepreneur, okay? Doesn't mean you have to be natural, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm an entrepreneur. And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I was born this way. Sometimes not every entrepreneur is born that way, but I was born that way. Let me give you an example. When I was in elementary school in Philadelphia, my friends and I decided on a Saturday to go down to the local creek. And in that creek, there was a teeming swarm of tadpoles. Now, if you don't know what a tadpole is a little, looks like a fish, but it turns into a frog. It grows legs, and eventually it becomes a frog. And if you're a boy in elementary school, let me tell you, that is interesting, the tadpoles and things like that. That's of interest to boys. So my friends, they grabbed 1 or 2 tadpoles, and they took them home. They thought that was great. I went home, and I got my mom's stockings, and I cut off a leg of one of her old stockings, and then I got myself a metal clothes hanger, and I wrapped that stocking around the clothes hanger so it had a little scooper in it, like a net. And I got a bucket, and I went back to that creek, and I scooped up tadpoles after tadpoles. I had them teeming in the bucket there. And then I went to school the next day. And when I went to school, I decided that I was going to sit in the boys' room, and I was going to sell tadpoles. The kids would come to me, the boys would come to me, "What are you selling?" And I'm saying tadpoles. They'd look at them, they get all excited. And they'd say, how much? Well, I priced it exactly the right price. And that was the price to get lunch. So when you went in and your mom would give you 35 cents, or your dad would give you 35 cents, here, buy lunch at school. Well, the price of my tadpole was 35 cents. Now, they didn't eat lunch, but they had a tadpole. And what I would tell them to do is get that little milk carton, I think it's a little pint or something, and rinse it out and fill it up with water. You give me 35 cents, I'll drop a tadpole in there. And this went on for about a week and a half. New tadpoles every day. Some of those boys didn't eat lunch at all. All they did is they just came in at lunchtime and they bought a tadpole every day. And I'm sure the parents started complaining and everything else. And then the beginning of the second week, who shows up? Who darkens the door of the bathroom? The principal. Yes, he darkened the door and he came in and he turned around and he looked at me and he said, young man, follow me to my office. And I went to his office, and he had a little discussion, and the next day I had to show up with my parents. My parents were there, and the principal said that this was unacceptable and that I should never again sell tadpoles. Now, he's very specific. He said tadpoles. I couldn't sell tadpoles. Well, I could figure out maybe I could sell something else. This was pretty profitable. I probably made more money that one week than my dad did working for the city of Philadelphia. So I decided I was going to come up with another product. Now, the product was getting pennies, selling pennies for 35 cents. Now, how do you sell pennies for 35 cents? Well, this is what you do. You turn around, you take the penny, and you stick it on the curb, and then you get yourself a really good, strong hammer, and you beat the tar out of that penny. And what happens is that penny all looks different when you're done hammering it with a hammer. And so you take that penny, you can still tell it's a coin, but you can't tell it's a penny anymore. You just know it's a coin. You take that coin, and I got some spray paint from my dad's garage, and it just happened to have silver and gold. And I sprayed some silver and others gold. And then I sat in the boys' room the next day, and I said, okay, guys, let's take a look at what I got to sell to you today. 35 cents for pirate coins. Now, that lasted about a week, and then you guessed it, the principal showed up. And I went to his office. My parents were called back in, and he said, there will be no more selling of pirate coins. Well, he kept on making that mistake, telling me I couldn't sell guppies or pirate coins. I just kept on coming up with new products, to finally he turned around and said, if I sell anything else at that school, that I would be suspended. And my parents said, knock it off. And the one thing I learned about public education is that they do not like entrepreneurship nor capitalism. So I had to end it at that point. So I learned a lot. I learned that I could make money on my own. I know that I could make lots of money. I didn't have to make it, back then I think minimum wage. Gosh, when I got older, when I was 15, I think my first job I was getting like $1.10 an hour minimum wage. And that was kind of boring because that's the most I could make. That really bothered me. So, make a long story short, I realized I was an entrepreneur and I started other businesses. All of them have been successful. I've made money at all of them, but I haven't stayed with all of them because there's reasons to move on sometimes. And I've also been an employee. So I worked for not only the Marine Corps, I was very successful in the Marine Corps, loved the Marine Corps. Marine Corps taught me a lot about managing, about people, about life. Man, I learned so much. I tell you what, I often say, the Marine Corps doesn't owe me anything. But I owe them a heck of a lot for what they've taught me. And when I was in the Marine Corps, they sent me to school to learn business systems, So I got my master's in business administration, and I applied that information each day, every day, to what I was learning there in handling people and organizations and things like that. It was a great time to learn a ton of stuff. So started Nova Voice and Data 28, 29 years ago. It's been very successful, everything else. And I've employed a lot of people. So I know, how to pick out employees that were going to be successful. But I also know the other end, how to be a successful employee, how to be a successful manager, how to be a successful organizer. So if you're not planning to start a business, this is also a podcast for you because I'm going to teach you how to be a better employee. I just remember one situation, this kind of a different situation. He was an employee of mine. He was a good employee. He worked hard, but he was a little bit arrogant. So he worked for me for about 10 years, and I taught him the world of IT and how to manage things. And and how to program systems, how to deal with customers, things like that. But he told me after 10 years that he was going to quit. And I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And he said, well, I'm going to start my own business. And he said, my father-in-law said I'd make a great businessman, and I'm going to start my own business. And I said, okay, fantastic. And he was really generous. He gave me a month heads up, and I was very much appreciative of that month. But I was sad to see him go because, well, he was a good technician. And on top of that, I spent a lot of money on his training. I would have liked to have seen him stay there forever, or at least until I decided to sell the company. But it was time for him to go, and so I said, let's talk a little bit. I've been in business for a long time there, friend. I said, do you think I could maybe, or if you'd like, I would like to help you out on the business and maybe give you some advice, things like that, help you get started. Because I started this business from scratch. I started Nova Voice and Data Systems from scratch. And I could give him some examples of how to do it and what to do. And he looked at me and he said, what makes you think that I need any type of advice from you? I said, okay, no problem. You want to go out on your own? Go ahead and do it. And I said, I wish you success. No problem at all. And let me know how it goes. Well, it didn't go very well. He was out of business in 6 months. So if you want to learn how to start a business, or if you want to learn how to be a better business owner, or you want to learn how to be a better manager or a better employee, man, I've been doing this for a long time, long time, and I think I can help you. So stay tuned, as they would say in the old days when they had 3 stations on the TV and they were going to a commercial. Stay tuned. Listen to my podcasts. We're going to have these podcasts on a regular basis, and we're going to talk about all those items: leadership, management, how to get ahead, how to start an IT company, how to start a company, period, and how to be successful in all these areas. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and I'll see you next time.